Hey fellow Trek Chatters, I'm Pit Trekkie and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. For today's episode, I'm going to be reviewing episode 8 of Star Trek Picard, Broken Pieces. So basically the episode started out on the grief world of, I guess, AIA, where the Zhat Vash had assembled about 14 years prior to where we're at currently. So they were talking. O is there with a group of Romulans in the Zhat Vash. I guess they're around what's called the admonition. It's some sort of like energy ring with like some pillars, and that they're told that they need to watch it and understand what's happening, and that some of them may go mad. So the people there actually grab it. And some do go mad. Some kill themselves. Some severely injure themselves. Two of them are very familiar. Narissa's obviously there, and so is Rhonda. And we find out that Rhonda is actually her aunt, and Eric's aunt. So Narissa's really the only one who's able to stand it and survive it fully. And she says to Commodore O, what should we do? How do we stop this? And Commodore O says, well, first step is on the planet the humans call Mars. Then we jump ahead 14 years later. Narissa's talking to Rhonda, who's unconscious even though she doesn't believe her. Talking about how she had taken Narek and her in after the death of her parents. After that little speech, she then is trying to find Elnor on board the ship. Elnor is found. I think he's in Hugh's old office, I think is what they said. And the Romulans come in to try to attack him and take him prisoner, but 7 of 9 shows up because he pushed that Fenris Ranger's intercom. So that's pretty much the beginning of the episode. Then we go into, as soon as Soji and Picard beam up from the Nepenthe, Captain Rios notices that she looks very familiar, and he starts acting very odd in the very beginning. And he basically says to Picard, the closest starbase is Deep Space 12, but once you make it to Deep Space 12, I'm done, I want no more part of this, pretty much. And he disappears into his quarters, and he activates his 5 holograms. Also through the episode, it kind of shows Raffi knows that there's something odd that's going on board the ship. So she kind of goes on this little quest with all of the holograms to try to figure out what's going on with Rios, because she realizes that these 5 holograms are little representations of Rios' psyche, pretty much. Also at this time, 7 of 9 is trying to reactivate the Borg cube. She ends up forming a little mini collective with the Borg that are left on the ship. However, Narissa orders that the Borg be blown into space, which is an idea that she got from her Centurion. She also decided she was going to start killing the XBs. And she started to go ahead and kill many of them on board the ship. 7 of 9 is with Elnor. They go into the Queen's cell, and 7 of 9 says, we're going to steal this cube. So the cube kind of connects into 7 of 9's spinal column and her Borg nanoprobes, and basically she becomes the Borg queen on board the ship. She tells Elnor that she wants to make a small mini collective with the Borg that were on board the ship. Okay? And then obviously she was very upset when the Romulans blew those Borg into space. Getting back to the whole thing with Rios, we find out finally Raffi's able to talk to Rios about what's going on, why he's basically in such a funk and in a mood all of a sudden, and he's isolating. So basically it goes back to this captain that he had on board the Ibn Majid, Captain Vandermeer. And so they were on some sort of mission in the Vite sector, and they rendezvoused with a small ship and made first contact with, there were 2 life forms on board, one called Beautiful Flower and the one called Jaina. And out of nowhere, at least it seems to Rios, Captain Vandermeer actually executes both of them, and then when he tries talking to Rios about it, or Rios tries talking to him about it, he puts the phaser in his mouth and he shoots himself dead. So that kind of goes back from episode 3 when he was talking about the captain's brains being splattered everywhere in blood. So we also have a little bit going on with Girardi, where she finally tells Picard why she murdered Bruce Maddox, basically saying that she never believed in hell until now because she saw it with Commodore O giving her that mind meld, and the mind meld of the admonition of what the vision is all about. Soji confronts Girardi about her possibly being sent by Commodore O to execute her, and she said that she won't give her the chance. Girardi seems to be kind of snapping out of it somehow, and sees Soji and says, "You know what? I would never. You're a piece of art. You're perfection. I would never do anything against you." And Soji said, "I'd never give you the chance." But they seem to have bonded during that little talk. So also earlier in the episode, Picard manages to finally convince Starfleet of what's going on. CNC Clancy says that she's sending an armada to rendezvous with DS-12 to help them with the situation with the planet of the synths. So it's got a little bit of an army going on. Captain Picard's happy about that. Soji wants to go home. She plots the La Serena toward Borg transwarp conduit, and they're ready to go through, and that's pretty much how the episode ends. So there's a lot of interesting things that went on in this episode. It was a great episode. I've watched it 3 times just to kind of piece everything together. Some of the things some thoughts I had about the episode. I'm glad that we finally figured out that was the Romulans who actually had taken over the synths. I mean, really, who didn't expect that it was going to be the Romulans or the Tal Shiar that didn't plan that and take over the synths? I mean, that was pretty straightforward and pretty obvious. But we also got to see a little bit of what happened with Rios, and learning a little bit more about the Ibn Majid and why the ship became classified, and the whole mission that happened, and why Rios actually basically got kicked out of Starfleet. They were probably trying to hush him up by saying he has some sort of post-trauma, but really he probably did have some sort of trauma. When you see the captain, that he was actually calling Papa to himself, he even said in the episode that he almost slipped a few times and called him Papa. So it showed a little bit more to Rios than him just being like this kind of like person with an attitude and just kind of like kind of like the Han Solo of the ship. There's a deeper component to him, and we got to see why he ended up having to leave Starfleet. I'm glad that we finally got CNC Clancy to finally listen to Picard. Of course, she had to shut him up with the F word one more time. That woman loves the F word in these shows. Every single appearance she's been in has been F this, F that. So but at least she actually finally saw what he was saying and realized that it was true, and sent the Armada to rendezvous with them at DS-12. So that's good. 7 charging into the rescue to save Elnor. That was really good. Are there any other Fenris Rangers? I can't remember if they said in an earlier episode if something had happened to them or what, but she's the only one who responded to that beacon? That's kind of interesting to me. I just like how she just came in and said, "We're going to take this cube. Forget the Romulans, we're just going to take it at this point." All right. And it was really awesome getting her getting to see her being the queen, essentially. Activating the ship, activating the other drones. The scene where the Romulans ejected the drones into space was really cool. I would have loved to have seen the actual, like the drones get to move around and actually have a few moments where they were actually, stalking the ship or going after the Romulans or something. It kind of happened really, really quickly. But based on the story, it made sense why they blew them into space right away. I also thought it was really cool that we found out that Rhonda is Narek and Narissa's aunt, and that it was actually her despair from the admonition, from her being driven mad by that actually caused the Borg cube to shut down when that ship was assimilated. So that was interesting, that she had that much trauma, that much issue going on, and the feelings related to it, that it actually caused that Borg cube to shut down. Doesn't seem likely, but it happened. So I thought that was a very interesting twist. I gotta also give some kudos to the Narissa actress, Peyton List. She does a remarkable job playing Narissa. I mean, you can genuinely feel the concern and the despair that she has over the sins possibly rising again and the admonition coming true. You know, and she just deliciously plays the role. You can tell she enjoys the role. You can always tell when an actor's really digging into it. She's not overacting or anything like that. She just seems to be really relishing the role. I think sometimes people, when they play evil roles, it gives them a chance to kind of let loose a little bit, and you can definitely see it in her acting. Another thing that was really interesting about the show was the 5 holograms. Now, we didn't get the names of all of them, but let me see here. The EMH does not have a name yet, to my knowledge. But we have the emergency navigation hologram. We've seen him before, but he's the Irish one, who's called Enoch. The emergency tactical hologram we've seen, and that's Emmett. And then the emergency engineering hologram we got to meet for the first time. He's got a Scottish brogue, which everybody is assuming is to kind of tie into Scotty. And his name's Ian. The emergency hospitality program, I don't think they actually have a name for him, but I believe he was referred to as Mr. Hospitality. So what was really cool, I think Raffi had a great arc in this episode. It was nice to stop seeing her being depressed and on drugs and alcohol, and actually kind of piecing everything together with the conclave of 8 with the 8 planets, or I'm sorry, the 8 suns and the planet in between, and her figuring out how that all was kind of like a marker by that, I guess, that group of people that had, I guess their Sinsa went rogue or whatever hundreds of thousands of years ago. So they created that area of space as kind of like a warning, which the Romulans eventually found, and that's how they know about the admonition. But her sleuthing was really, really good. And I think it was very interesting how the writers had all 5 of these little pieces of Rios, and her realizing that these are little bits of his psyche. If you noticed in the holodeck scene, with all 5 of them, they all knew like little snippets of stuff about like Jaina and what happened with the Ibn Majid and stuff, and they all came together eventually cohesively. But she was able to finally start solving it. She's even like rubbing her hand on her face and saying, "I can feel it, I'm getting closer." And she really did. She had some really good problem-solving skills in this episode, bringing it together. Let's see here. So one thing I was really surprised about is we found out that it was Starfleet that ordered Beautiful Flower and Jaina killed. But it necessarily wasn't really Starfleet, it was Commodore O. So it was Starfleet, but yet she wasn't technically really working for Starfleet. She was, officially she was, but she was Zhat Vash that was planted there by the Romulans. All right? And so it makes sense that this captain would have, she must have threatened him in some way to the point that he was that scared that Captain Vandermeer killed these people and then killed himself. At one point, Rios is even saying, I think he said it to Picard, that he felt that maybe Rios, or the captain, felt he could live with it because they were synths, but really couldn't do it. And that's what finally drove him mad and to kill himself. Let's see what else here. There were some neat little Easter eggs throughout the episode, too, which were really cool. The Centurion that was working with Narissa, Centurion Tarrant, I believe his name is. That was a nice little callback to the original series and a little bit of the Next Generation. You didn't hear a whole lot of the term Centurion after the original series, but it was Centurion Bakra was in 3rd season episode Next Generation, The Enemy. So that was a nice little throw in there. Also turns out that Marla Betenides from the Next Generation episode 6 season Tapestry was mentioned, and she was actually a captain. She was the captain to Captain Vandermeer. So that was a nice little tie-in as well. One thing I will say about some of the Easter eggs lately in the show is that they've been kind of digging through Star Trek history and picking out little things that you wouldn't expect that they would. So that was a kind of a fun little mention there. 2 real questions that I had from this episode. And at first I didn't have them, but after my 3rd rewatch, I kind of wondered some things. First of all, 7 of 9 was on that Borg cube, and if you notice, after the Borg are blown out into space, she's still talking with the voice of the collective. And I wasn't sure if she had linked herself and those other Borg to the entire Borg collective overall. But it turns out that's not the case, because in the middle of the episode, 7 and 9 even says that I'm going to form a mini collective with the Borg on this ship. So she did, but after they were blown out into space, she still sounded like she was speaking with all of their voices in. And so I thought that was kind of odd. Why was she still having kind of like that kind of voice that sounded like there were many other drones involved when they were all dead? Unless somehow the XBs were connected, but I don't necessarily think they were. I think it was just the Borg drones. So that's just something that I've been kind of scratching my head over. But that's pretty much it at this point. Those are just some of my thoughts and feelings on the episode. So let me know what some of your thoughts were. I'm going to be reviewing the next 2 episodes of Picard here very shortly. Just please put your comments down below. I'd like to answer some of those questions or any comments that any of you have. You can follow the show on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, type in Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. It'll take you to my channel. You can also follow the show on Facebook, facebook.com/Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. You can also follow the show on YouTube at PGH Trek Chat. I'm looking forward to the next episode, and until then, may you live long and prosper.